Yeah, my mic's on. Okay, 10:01. Okay, we're going to open the meeting of the Community Preservation Committee on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025 at 10:02 for our annual meeting. We have some housekeeping stuff before we get started, but we do have a quorum. We don't have anybody on Zoom, correct?
No.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Neville. And Neville made a motion to approve the agenda. Tom seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We don't have to do roll call. How about that? Somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I would move.
Okay, Tim?
Second.
Tom? All those in favor?
Aye.
We don't have any correspondence. The guests are all involved with the annual meeting. And we do have two things of housekeeping. Neville, these are yours. Any comments?
No comments, I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, and that is Nantucket Interfaith Neville Richard, $31,483 for FY25. And Nantucket Interfaith Neville again, $40,612.80 FY25. Neville made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Tim seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No old business, no new business, no other business. Commissioners' comments about anything? And we do have a new member, Connie Patton from the HDC, in case you don't know her. Tom, do you?
Hi.
Okay. Oh, Eleanor had just arrived, so we have 6. And I know John is out of the country, and Joe is stuck in traffic. So that is pretty much it for the housekeeping. So now we have the CPC Annual Public Forum.
Madam Chair,
Yep,
do you know where Jesse Dutra is?
I just tried him. I have no idea. Hopefully he'll come.
I beat you on a bike. Barely.
Sorry, everyone.
Got to stay away from these rotaries.
Oh, amen.
That's great, because we're in person. Nobody's up on Zoom. That's the first time that's happened in a long time. Cool. All right. For everybody's edification in the audience, I'm Linda Williams. I'm the chair. Joe Topham's the vice chair. Neville Richin, Tom Dixon, Tim Sovrino, and Connie Patton, and Eleanor Antonetti. And we are only missing John Schaefer and Jesse Dutra, which is great. Okay, there's a speech that Ken Bogrand, our dearly departed chairman, who kept this place going all these 24 years until his untimely passing. So I'm going to read what he used to read. And it's, hello and welcome to the CPC regular meeting and annual public forum. I'm Linda Williams, the chair. Immediately following our regular CPC meeting, we will commence our annual public forum, and we're at that point right now. Since the inception of Community Preservation Committee, we have granted over, actually, it's closer to 60 million now, which has been used for funding over 250 island projects. Each year, we invite speakers from the 3 categories: housing, historic preservation, affordable housing, open space recreation, to speak about how CPC funding has helped preserve or sustain their organization. This year, we will hear from Kristie Ferrentella, the Housing Director for Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Nancy Friend, Executive Director, Miacomet Building Envelope, and Mark Vanacore, President of the Nantucket Racquet Sports Association. Submissions for grant applications are due September 5th by 4 o'clock at the CPC office at 7C Hannaby Lane. If anybody listening needs help with their CPC applications, you can get a hold of me, you can get a hold of any of the board members, you can get a hold of Glenna at the office, and we'd be happy to help you, because there's usually a fire drill starting September 1st, trying to get everything in, because these can be quite onerous for some organizations, especially the smaller organizations. And the CPC applications are up on the website, CPC website, and all the directions are up there, but everybody's willing to help anybody who needs help. So we will have our first speaker. Kristie.
Good morning, Kristie Ferrentella, the Municipal Housing Director for the town of Nantucket. I just wanted to first thank you all for inviting me to speak today. We've had a great partnership between the CPC and the Affordable Housing Trust over the last several years, and I wanted to walk through today how CPC funding has really launched the Affordable Housing Trust into the key partnerships that we've been able to do and the success that we've had over the last 6 years. So I think our slides are up there. Yes. Okay, perfect. So the first slide, I just wanted to open up talking about how CPC funds are utilized for affordable housing. And this is coming from the state, and it's a tax on our real estate, an additional tax that goes to open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. And while most state funding only supports area median incomes under 80% of AMI, the CPC funds go all the way up to 100% of area median income. And the chart there shows you what that income group is. So 100% of area median income for a family of 4 is $149,688. And so this gives us a little bit of flexibility compared to typical state funding, which has to be for the extremely low income. This starts to go into the missing middle income. So we're very appreciative for CPC funding to help us do developments between that 80% and 100% of area median income. Next slide, please. So touching base, I like to start by saying we don't necessarily have a housing crisis, we have a housing affordability crisis. So Nantucket has over 12,000 dwellings, but 35% of them are utilized year-round, and the remaining are seasonal or underutilized housing. And so this leads to a condensed market, which then leads to higher prices on the rental and the market for purchasing. So 53% of residents on Nantucket spend over 30% of their income on housing, and that's defined by the US government as being housing cost burden. We really want to make sure that housing costs are under 30% of area median of your total income, household income. In the last 5 years, we've seen the median home price shoot up 67%. It's nearly, almost a doubling of costs in the last 5 years. And this is, as I'll get into, why the CPC funds have been so helpful in having us, helping the trust secure properties and vacant land prior to the large increase in home prices. The latest affordable housing lottery that was performed at the Richmond development had a 1 to 18 unit to qualified tenant ratio, which means there was 18 qualified tenants earning below 80% of area median income for every unit that they had in their lottery, which means the need is very high. And people keep asking, how much do we need? We need a lot right now. And what we want to try to figure out is how do we not just build new, but conserve the existing affordable housing, the naturally occurring affordable housing, and how do we also convert these underutilized, as I talk about the 65% of houses that are underutilized year-round, how do we convert those into some sort of year-round use and affordability use? Next slide, please. So recent strategic achievements. Utilizing CPC funds through the Affordable Housing Trust has allowed us to acquire vacant land and develop units for the town's subsidized housing inventory list. And for those that aren't familiar with what we call the SHI list, this is a state requirement that 10% of our year-round housing needs to be deed restricted as affordable, serving 80% AMI or less. And what CPC has allowed us to do is really ramp up those units over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. So we currently stand as a town at 6.55% towards our 10% goal, and we've added 206 units over the past 5 years. Nearly every single one of those units has been made possible through CPC funding. We've received just over $13 million to date, and part of that is annual appropriations from the CPC, and part of that is the ability to bond through CPC funding. So in 2019, 2021, and then this recent annual town meeting voters have approved the ability for us to issue a bond for $5 million each. So we're now at we're at $15 million as of this last town meeting, that can be used for future funding and development. So far, we've been able to complete 15 projects or have them in the works and has created over 100 units of housing. Next slide, please. So this slide really shows the progress that we've made, and I talk about 2019 as being that pivotal point in time. Prior to 2019, we were very slowly adding units to our subsidized housing inventory units, inventory list. And in 2019, we had the Neighborhood First warrant article that provided $20 million to the Affordable Housing Trust. And in that same town meeting was the first $5 million CPC bonding. And those funds really launched the Affordable Housing Trust to partner with other developers, to work on projects, to purchase vacant land. And since then, you've seen this rapid growth in units. So we currently today stand at 405 units on our subsidized housing inventory list. And our goal is to get to 618 units. With the projects that we have in development in both 2025 and 2026, we're projected to be at 590 units by the end of 2026. So we're very close to hitting that 10% goal, and our hope is that in 2027, we'll reach 10%. Now that number readjusts with every decennial census. So in 2030, the census will recapture our year-round housing and may recalculate that 10% number, and we may have to adjust again up or down after that census, which we had to do after the 2020 census. But we've made significant progress, and that really stems from the CPC funding that helped us launch into purchasing vacant land and working with existing developers to buy down units that were originally going to be market rate and had them be affordable housing units. Next slide, please. So this slide, right before town meeting, our communications office put this together to really showcase, we want to celebrate our success. And what the Affordable Housing Trust has been doing for the last 6 years has been working so hard on projects that we forgot to kind of look up and say, hey, everybody, look at what we've done. We just kept our heads down saying, okay, next project, next project, next project, how can we work with others? So we've worked with Habitat for Humanity on home ownership opportunities. We worked with Richmond on both home ownership and rentals. Right now, the Richmond development, which has 255 rentals, originally only needed 25% to be deed restricted, and now 50% of those units are deed restricted because of the partnerships with the Affordable Housing Trust. And those go all the way down to 50% of area median income, up to 175%. So we were able to work on increasing the scope of the number of units and the range of affordability. We've also worked with Housing Nantucket on their house recycling program, and I talk about that conservation, how do we use existing homes instead of building new, and they've been able to add a few units both to our subsidized housing inventory, and they've also kind of launched into that missing middle income and creating units at that 150% of area median income. Our greatest success is Wiggles Way across the street. It's 22 units where CPC funds were used to help purchase the land, and that grant was given to Housing Nantucket to develop a 22 unit rental property. Next slide, please. CPC funds helped us create the closing cost assistance program. And what this does is help home buyers who are purchasing their first home, which is a deed restricted home. We provide a loan of $15,000, which is forgivable and helps with the closing costs. And we've been able to assist 108 families with the purchase of their first homes over the past 5 years. So it's a really exciting program that takes off that burden for the first-time homeowners as they're going through the process. Closing costs can be up to $15,000 for most, and so that covers that cost for them and kind of allows them to get off on the right foot when they're entering homeownership. Next slide, thank you. So I just talked about Wiggles Way. This was completed in spring of 2025, and this is serving families and individuals earning between 80% and 150% of area median income. All 22 units are on our subsidized housing inventory list, and 6 of the workforce rental units are reserved for municipal housing. And this was really a great collaboration between CPC funding, Affordable Housing Trust Neighborhood First funding, We had federal ARPA funds that went towards this project and the land bank. So you really see all these tools coming together to create an affordable housing development that's creating year-round housing for our community. In this lottery for the 22 units, 197 people applied for the 80% units, and 195 of them were already living on Nantucket, with the other 2 having job offers to reside on Nantucket. So we are housing the locals who are already here. As we keep saying, how do we keep people here? It's projects and programs like this that are keeping our community here. Thank you. And the next project I wanted to touch base on is Habitat for Humanity. They've been a key partner with the CPC prior to the Affordable Housing Trust kind of coming in as the central agency to request CPC funds. Habitat went directly to CPC in the past. Now they come through the Affordable Housing Trust. In this past year, we awarded a $4 million grant for them to develop 6 units. And this is the largest development that Habitat has done, and they have come in on time and under budget so far. They have nearly completed 4 of the single-family homes, and they have started working on the duplex, which will have 2 units. All of this wouldn't have been possible without CPC funding to help launch this program. And I like to tell people, CPC helps us, so we have town meeting funding for the Affordable Housing Trust, and we have CPC funds, and we really are serving 2 different buckets, with the CPC being restricted under 100%, and town meeting being able to serve that missing middle of 100% to 240 of AMI. And so being able to utilize both buckets helps us to kind of do more faster, which is what we're trying to accomplish in today's ever-rising real estate market. And so the CPC funding really helped finance that gap in what it costs to develop the housing versus what they can sell the homes for. And so that sale, the resale restriction is determined by the state, and these homes are being sold for under $300,000 for families, which is unheard of compared to our median home price of $3.5 million. Next slide, please. I spoke about this at the CPC quarterly report that Richmond Development has really been a key partner with the Affordable Housing Trust. They had gone to town meeting to change the zoning over in that development, and with that, they had to restrict 25% of the units to 80% of AMI or less. And through many collaborations, through all of their Meadows 1 and Meadows 2 projects, we've been able to restrict 50% of those units. And that's really increased the number of units that are restricted in perpetuity, but then also expanded that affordability above 80%, all the way up to 150%. Just recently, in January of this year, they decided to take their market rate units in their Meadows 1 development that are already constructed and convert them into affordable housing. And so this prevents additional construction, but adding 28 units to our subsidized housing inventory. So they just launched a lottery a few weeks ago for their 7 restricted units at 80% of AMI, and they are currently going through the process of verifying incomes and selecting tenants, and will be moving in September 1st. And again, all 28 units of already constructed housing will be on our subsidized housing inventory list. So we're really excited about that collaboration. Next slide, please. So CPC, as I said, kind of launched us in 2019 of being able to purchase strategic vacant land purchases so that we could develop affordable housing on these lots. So we've used a combination of CPC funds with Neighborhood First funding to purchase 7 Amelia Drive, 135 and 137 Orange Street, 12 and 12R Bartlett Road, 31 Fairgrounds, which is Wiggles Way, and 16 Vesper Lane. And so all of that, the CPC funds helped us purchase these in a time where the real estate market was just starting to take off. And if you move to the next slide, we're now in the process of being able to develop the vacant land. And I know some people say, move quickly and get them developed quickly. We wanted to strategize and move these along in keeping us in safe harbor. And so just kind of going back to the terms that we throw around our subsidized housing inventory list, if we put everything on the list in 1 year and we don't hit the 10%, then we're not protected from unfriendly 40Bs. So we wanted to do these over time. And while we had the Richmond properties coming online, in Wiggles Way, we wanted to make sure that each year we had a project that put us in a position to add to our housing inventory and create what they call safe harbor from unfriendly 40Bs. And so we put these out to bid, 7 Amelia Drive, and we did a bundled RFP for 135, 137 Orange Street, 12 and 12R Bartlett Road, and 16 Vesper Lane. The RFP went out this past fall, and they're both being reviewed right now by committees. 7 Amelia has up to 3 units, and the other bundled RFP has up to 61 units. So we're really excited to see, July 31st, we'll be seeing a presentation on the bundled RFP. We received 2 bids for that, and we received 2 bids for 7 Amelia as well. So we're moving forward in those projects. In the next few years, we'll see those developments hopefully coming online. Next slide, please. So future plans. This past town meeting, we received the voters' support and another $5 million CPC bond. And as I explained at town meeting and in front of the CPC committee, this is really kind of a security. It's the option to bond for up to $5 million when an opportunity comes available. And one of the challenges in the real estate market is that we can't act fast enough. So this provides us with this tool that if something comes along, we have the option to not wait for the next round of funding through town meeting, but actually commit to either a project that's already being developed or, as Meadows one is an example, if there's something that's already built that we want to be able to convert into affordable housing. So we're hoping to use these funds to help Habitat for Humanity as they wrap up their project on Waite Drive. As many know, the Nantucket Land Trust was just filed as a 501c3 headed by Tucker Holland, and we're hoping to help them with projects that they're coming online with and any potential new affordable housing project. So as we work with other developers like Richmond or Housing Nantucket or the Land Trust, if they have a project coming on, we want to be able to act quickly and have the resources available to either provide a grant or a loan to help subsidize that gap in financing. We're also learning a lot about year-round deed restrictions under the seasonal communities designation. And in September, they're going to be releasing the guidelines. And this is a new designation under the Affordable Homes Act at the state that will allow us to put potential year-round deed restrictions with and without an affordability restriction. And so what we're trying to figure out is how could we potentially use CPC funds in future use of those year-round deed restrictions. And as the Vineyard is doing right now, they're advocating for a municipal preference with CPC funds. So there's a lot of things in the work, but this bond really allows us to have that flexibility. So if the state says yes, then we can then work on a project that maybe is reserved. The example on the Vineyard is a teacher housing. And so, I keep saying there's potential for things in the future once we get the okay from the state, and this bond allows us with that flexibility. Next slide, please. So that is everything I wanted to update today. This picture, second from the left, is Secretary Augustus. He's the Secretary of Housing, and this is actually a position that Governor Healy created when she came on board. That prior to her administration, we did not have a Secretary of Housing for almost 40 years. And so he's really leading the state and is very in tune with the challenges on Nantucket and the Vineyard and the Cape, and really advocating for us in terms of a transfer fee, in terms of seasonal communities designation, municipal preference. He's really been a great advocate. So I'm open to answer any questions. I'll also be at the Select Board tonight providing a quarterly report from the Affordable Housing Trust. So it's a full day of housing today. And I just want to thank you again for the partnership of CPC. We really wouldn't have been able to do everything we've done in the last few years without your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to say, Kristie, you are doing, having been in the housing venue for decades, you're a spectacular job.
Thank you.
I mean, absolutely spectacular job. I just wish more of the information that you gave us was out in the public venue so people can actually see that CPC funding and trust funds are actually doing something out there instead of everybody carping, where is it, where is it, where is it? And Wiggles Way is very obvious, but there's an awful lot more going on with you guys within partnership with us, and I've got to commend you. What a spectacular job. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for Kristie?
I was just a little curious.
curious more about the.
Jesse, turn that on.
More curious about the year-round deeds restriction and how that works.
Yeah.
Is that something that a year-rounder can opt into?
So right now, prior to the Affordable Homes Act being signed into law last year, you could only have a restriction in perpetuity, a government restriction, if it was deemed affordable or for conservation. But the Affordable Homes Act was made it legal to do just an occupancy restriction. And so that's defined as 10 months out of the year, and no short-term rentals are allowed in the other months. And what that's going to open up is the opportunity for homeowners to opt in, or for potential buyers, as they're going to secure their first home, to, in exchange for a deed restriction, acquire funds as a down payment assistance. And so the trust has been actually working on this prior to the Affordable Homes Act. Since about 2022, we've been developing this program, and we're launching a pilot program. So it's just initial pilot to see how it works, with funding of $2 million. And homeowners could, again, either opt in and stay living in their home, or it could be a tool for homeownership as a down payment assistance. And so that program is going to be launched in the next couple of weeks or months. We're going through finance. I don't want to overcommit, but we are very hopeful that will be launched very soon.
Yeah, I think that'll be very strong. And I know a lot of people in the community that, don't want to sell, but they have to because they need money.
Right, and that's what we really see this as, being a tool of allowing people to stay in their home. But with that deed restriction, when they do go to sell, it will stay in the year-round community. And that's really important, because what we're seeing is so many conversions of people who bought in maybe, the early 80s or 90s for $200,000 or $300,000, and now they're going to sell for $2 million or $3 million. And it's hard to keep those in the year-round community. And so this program, we're hoping to be able to kind of conserve the existing year-round housing and keeping it year-round.
Or those of us who have existing units that were voluntarily, there's a bunch of us like that, like myself, who voluntarily rent my garage apartment, $1,200 a month. And those are difficult as we age. Those of us who have those units, we don't want to go to full market value, no matter how much we're offered. I was offered $4,000 recently. I said, there are a lot of us that do that. And I know you've talked to me about that, developing that program for those of us who are voluntarily doing it, but we need the cash. So I think those are the units that are going to get lost as things get sold. Because not everybody, let's say somebody buys my house, they're not going to keep that apartment at affordable rates. So that would be very helpful for a lot of people that are already here, that have longtime homeowners, like mine was 1983. So that will help a lot of people here. So I think that'll open up even more avenues for restricted units.
It's a great tool.
And
Yeah.
tonight I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing around lease to locals and a potential program called Rooted Renters. So I'll give you a little sneak peek, but that's not utilizing CPC funds, as it's really targeted towards the missing middle and serving incomes up to 175% of AMI. But that's where we're talking about how do we either convert underutilized or maintain existing rentals and keeping them year round. So tune in tonight to learn more.
Oh, spectacular job. Anybody else have anything?
I do. So the recycling program, one of the things I was trying to work with Affordable Housing Trust and to get a house moved. And by the time I got Verizon, everyone involved, we were into the summer months and we couldn't get it moved. So one of the things I'm like, do you find that you're losing houses because of that? And then the one thing I would love to do is get Comcast and Verizon and National Grid and the town, like 10 locations, intersections, drop the wires underground, because we've done them 100 times. We would have paid for this like 20 times over. But, I didn't know if you were running to that same obstacle of having, one of the utility companies restricting you from moving a house, if that's come up yet.
So we haven't, at the Affordable Housing Trust, done the house moves. That's usually something that we act as the bank in providing grants or funding to somebody like Housing Nantucket.
Yeah, it was Housing
And then
Nantucket. Sorry, I
allowing them
misspoke.
to do
Yeah.
the house move.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you guys were hearing anything or if that was kind of a problem, but I'd like to just get everyone together to kind of do that, because I am seeing more and more at the HGC was like, we can't move it in time. We can't do this or whatever. So I just think it's a sad thing where these houses are available. I know there's one in Jefferson Street that's a, 1999 house, and it's going to get demolished because it's got nowhere to go and the location of the wires. So it's just kind of sad.
It's
So you-
been a big conversation at the trust in how do we work with other agencies like the Historic Preservation and the Land Bank and just all these other organizations and Remain and create some sort of program. But right now, we're really focused on what we have in our toolbox, and hopefully in the future, we can look at something around house moves, because that's, again, kind of in line with that mission of how do we retain the existing housing that's here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to chime in with what Joe just said. Years ago, we were talking about, probably at least 10 years ago, we were talking about there's nowhere to deposit homes because you have approvals to do whatever you're going to do on your property, giving the house away, come get it, but it's not ready to go someplace. So we were talking about where is there, before Glowacki's got all developed, we were looking at a place there
They had a
to
lot.
move houses to in the meantime, so they don't get demolished, before they move to where they're going to go. So there's really no depot, a home depot, basically, for houses to sit before they can go someplace. And so both Joe and I are seeing an awful lot of these houses get demolished because they just can't go somewhere in the interim so they can continue with their billion-dollar projects. So that in itself is a deterrent to, what am I going to do with this house? It's going to have to come down because it's got nowhere to go. So there are a lot of houses that could qualify to go someplace, but they just have to get out of where they are, kind of thing. So I think that I agree with the wires, because I move houses all the time. I moved 2 or 3 in the last month. And like, I hit these wires and the poles, and Bartlett Road in particular, it's 22 feet. You can't go 22.5. So you've got in the intersection of Quaker. I mean, we've got a lot of weird intersections that have these wires that are just everywhere, and trying to get Comcast and Verizon,
Verizon just put
It's
a
a
new wire
nightmare
that's
to do it.
22 feet high.
yeah, it's a
Literally
nightmare.
like cut us,
It's a nightmare.
so,
And they all don't talk to each other.
no. That's why I'm like, let's look at the 10 intersections, get on the ground, and then
Yeah.
it's off them.
So there's a lot of things we can make it easier to actually recycle the homes. Most of us want to recycle these homes. We don't want to trash them. Tipping costs are huge. So there's just a lot of logistics, but I think if we had some sort of a work group to go through exactly what the impediments are to moving a house, that may help solve some stuff.
Yeah,
I'll throw that on your plate.
Yeah, and one of the
I'll
things we're
report
always-
back to the trust.
I think Land Bank would be helpful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things we're always doing is Linda and I was like, okay, well, this
knew that
number's
was
gonna be
coming.
out this, that's gonna be.
Wrote
out
it
to
down
here.
before you said it.
But you showed us till, 2027, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan? Do you know those numbers roughly that you're hoping to hit? Not to put you on the spot, but just kind of curious.
Yeah, so the trust has really focused on serving the low income and getting things on the shy list over the last few years. We wanted to reach that 10%. So as I said, we're trying to get there by 2027, and then our hope is to look at focusing on that missing middle. And so we've just recently acquired 55 Fairgrounds and 10 Parker Lane. It's a 2-acre parcel that we're hoping to develop that into home ownership. That under local zoning can hold up to about 20 units of housing. That would be at max build out. So we're doing a site plan of that momentarily. And we just want to focus on being able to do key partnerships with other nonprofits like Housing Nantucket, Habitat for Humanity, the Land Trust, and being able to focus on home ownership. And that's the number that we really want to focus on in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you.
Well, I know that a lot well, because I did a development on the other side of the road, but it's a good place to move, if we develop those lots, to move houses to, rather than build from ground up if the house is worthwhile building. But I think you've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, and 16 Vesper, I think is gonna be nice because the hospital's doing something right across the street, if you will. And that's gonna be great, where they have off space, and I think they're doing apartments above,
Yeah.
so.
20-something, 26, something like that.
And then, but this is, the only thing I was worried about that is I'm having conversations about that through the planning board, is the people driving through Quinn Village. So trying to get a different access to that, but it's kind of been an interesting conversation about that, and the Navy and et cetera, and the Coast Guard. It's been quite a challenge. So, yeah.
Well, the original plan I saw when I was on the planning board, the driveway went down away from the Gowan Village entrance. They didn't even use it. They went down the far west side of it.
Yeah, they got the
straight
guy
in.
in San Francisco, and he said no, because he didn't own Nantucket. So he's been removed, but the order has been in place,
Fine.
just so FYI.
Okay, Anything else, guys? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You just need to take this on the road more often.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. And like I said, I'll be speaking at Select Board tonight as well, if you want to listen in. We do also have a housing newsletter, if you want to go on the website and sign up for that. We will be releasing it next week, which will cover a lot of the quarterly updates that I'll be talking about tonight.
I want to piggyback on, you're doing an amazing job, stellar, making a big difference, very impactful. And I want to defend your outreach and communications. I know there's always more that can be done. I think you guys are crushing. There's always going to be naysayers. You just can't solve that problem. I'm sorry, but you're doing, I think, everything in your wheelhouse.
can.
You have the newsletter, you present to the select board on a regular basis, you do this, you come to us.
Yep.
You're very accessible. People want information, they can get it. They just need to
Ask.
lift their, yes, I'm not using that word, but.
Yeah.
So
ask.
I'm going to fully defend your competent efforts to do outreach and communications and spread the word, and people just need to be patient. I think they want, heads in beds and all of this. And before I worked for the town, I was like, what's wrong with the town? And then I went and worked for the town for 7.5 years. I'm like, I get it now. It is what it is. So I just want to say, not only are you doing a great job in the Affordable Housing Trust, et cetera, but all the information is out there. Just need to ask.
I appreciate that. And we did do a big overhaul of our website. So all projects are listed there with as much information around who's the developer, the timeline of it. Every time we have an update around a project like Tacoma Green, we add it on our website. So you can always find things. And if not, like Eleanor said, pick up the phone and call me. I'm happy to answer any question.
Eleanor, Jody Barrett, who's doing the master plan, she said, I know it doesn't look like the town's doing any work, but she said reviewed everything. They're doing a ton of work.
Yeah.
It just sometimes doesn't hit. Where
They
all of a
don't
sudden-
see it.
Right, and all of a sudden now it's like wiggles way, like goes into motion, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden,
Well-
drove by the other day and the dad's there with 3 boys playing.
But that's not enough, Joe.
No, I know, but it's like we're
not
working
enough.
on it. And then August 11th is Room for Us or something, at Kit Noble, I think, put together or something, so that's.
There's
kinda
always stuff in
curious.
the paper too, like the thing about the new program that the Island Housing Trust is going to help. I mean, there's just always, every week, there's something about some initiative that's happening. And then, of course, the Land Bank is collaborating with you on various things, so.
But I got to say, Kristie, the communication between you and the CPC, because for many years, we had these grants,
Nantucket.
the bonds, $10 million in bonds, now 15. And all the other money we've given over the years, 13 million, and there was no communication between that office and us as to where the money was going. And I think you're coming in on the quarter is very helpful to us, so we know where that money is going, because we have a huge amount of money tied up with the housing efforts. So we appreciate that, too. That last go-around we had last month was great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to Glenna for always letting me add on to the agenda.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you tonight.
The next person up is Nancy Friend, who's the Executive Director of Miacomet Building Envelopes.
Good morning.
Move that thing where it's right at your mouth, otherwise that TV won't pick it up.
I have a couple of handouts here. Unfortunately, I did not prepare a point, but I do have handouts so you can kind of look at some visuals that I attached here as well. Right there. So good morning, everyone. Happy to be here this morning to report back on some of our projects that we've completed over the past few years with the help of CPC funds. Miacomet Village 1 is one of our state subsidized public housing developments, which consists of 12 units of family housing. It's 6 duplexes, 2-story buildings built in 1988. And then we have 10 units of elderly housing, also built in 1988, and those are 1- and 2-story buildings. And we also have a community room building as well. The Nantucket Housing Authority's 37-year-old residential apartment buildings envelopes were in desperate need of updating and repairs, and with the help of CPC funding, we continue to reach our goal in updating and preserving the exterior building envelopes. In 2022, we completed the exterior building envelope preservation project, which included new roofs, siding, windows, doors, and trim in units 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 on Miacomet Road, with the assistance of a CPC grant award. The lifespan of the remaining exterior building envelopes has expired and is in desperate need to preserve these affordable housing units. When the NHA received its fiscal year '23 CPC grant award in the amount of $342,367 for 2 units of housing on Benjamin Drive, the NHA then applied for High Leverage Asset Preservation Program, which is HILAP grant funds. And these are only available if you receive a CPC grant award, and they're from the Executive Office of Livable Housing Communities, EOHLC, the state. If approved, we would be able to access 1.5 times the dollar amount of the local CPC grant. In August 2024, the NHA received formal approval of a HILAP grant in the amount of $513,550, bringing our grant award combined with the CPC to $855,917. While we were collaborating with the architect on prioritizing the buildings which needed to be done within the scope, we determined that due to the conditions, we needed to expand the project, but the budget did far exceed the funding that was available. I did go back to the state and plead my case and request for additional funding to expand the project sooner than later, which would ultimately save money. I'm happy to report that our $513,550 HILAP grant was increased to just under $1.8 million. We haven't seen this happen in a long time, and this was, very good news for us so that we could complete additional work. In addition to that, we also were awarded ARPA formula funding, just over $24,000, and the Housing Authority contributed their own formula funding, just over $63,000. So combined with the CPC grant of $342,367, we're at a total of just over $2.2 million. Those funds are able to get us, which we originally applied for, the CPC grant was for 2 units. Now we're able to complete 12 units, plus a community and office building. These are all located on Manta and Benjamin Drive, and this would not have been possible without the Community Preservation Committee. And I can't stress enough that, I'm sure all the people in the public appreciate this, but the Housing Authority does as well, so we can continue to serve low-income families on Nantucket. The project includes the replacement of all exterior sidewalls, shingles, wood trim, downspouts, gutters, windows, screens, entrance doors, storm doors, and roofs. The project was bid earlier this year, and demo and construction began in early July. And in your package, you'll see some photos if you wanted to look through those, but it does show you, and I've labeled them like 2022, some of the projects that we completed, and then the projects that we're completing now in 2025, and then the goal that we have left for the future to finish out. In fiscal year 2026, I should say the NHA applied for the fiscal year 2026 CPC funding application in the amount of $341,030 to complete the building envelope in 2 more of our housing units. If approved, again, I would go apply for the HILAP funding to get a 1.5 times the match for that dollar amount through the state. If awarded, we would be able to complete our remaining 2 units in the state portfolio, which would be great news for the Housing Authority. Our goals in the future consist of upgrades to Miacomet 2 Village, because Miacomet 1 will be complete if we do receive the additional funding after the 2026 award. Then we'll move on to the Miacomet Village 2, which is our federal site on Naquarta Drive. We do have a capital needs assessment scheduled to take place in August of this year. And once we have that complete, we'll be able to hopefully apply again next year for the fiscal year 28 CPC application to continue our efforts in preserving affordable housing on Nantucket. The Nantucket Housing Authority has been awarded over $607,000 in CPC funds since fiscal year 25, and without the help of these community preservation funds, we would not be able to complete the much-needed repairs and we're grateful for the continued partnership in preserving the much-needed assets of affordable housing on Nantucket. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Because I'm on the Housing Authority, just to make sure everybody knows that. I'm the Housing Authority representative for the CPC. Do you want to explain the two different, we have feds, which are on one rule, and we have the state, which is under another rule? And the feds don't necessarily get matching, or times, the feds are on their own, and that's a
Correct.
much different, more, they're the ones in the middle. Some of the houses were moved in there, as opposed to being built in there, so it's a little, they're all mostly single-family dwellings in there, aren't they? In that center section with the state funds, I mean, the Fed funds, but there's two different funding sources here, and they're under totally different rules and regulations. Do you want to just sort of touch on that?
Yeah, they are. They're very different programs. As I mentioned, the state program, we are able to ask for these HILAP funds, which is wonderful. And I will say, I know Kristie mentioned Secretary Augustus, and I wanted to mention that he did visit the Housing Authority as well last fall. And he is a great advocate for public housing, and we're happy to have him on board. We haven't had someone, as Kristie mentioned, in this role for several years. And he is visiting all the housing authorities throughout Massachusetts. And he was off island visiting us as well in the spring, and he's halfway there. I just wanted to report that. He's gone through half of the housing authorities within the state, and he continues to visit every one of them. So jumping back to your question with the state, I kind of got lost on that piece, but I just wanted to mention that. So we will be able to ask for those HILAP funds and hopefully get those again. With the federal program, that's not the case. The federal program is a little bit more challenging, and that's why once I have the capital needs assessment completed next month, we'll have a better idea of where we're going with this. But we do need a lot of repairs done at that development as well. We wanted to finish out the state portfolio to complete that and, be able to leverage any funds that we could in addition to CPC.
May I ask a piggyback question? Well, are any of the HILAP funds tied to federal funding? The
They are
concern being the budget cuts.
Yeah, they're not attached to the federal funding. So I'm looking at what else is out there right now to a similar type of thing. I'm trying to investigate what might be available to leverage additional funding on the federal side.
Thank you.
I just have to say that just over a year now.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
How long have you been with us at the Housing Authority?
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and we are so organized, it's not funny. Prior to that, it was difficult, and she spent the first 6 months to 9 months just trying to organize the paperwork and get us up to date, and we never knew that the HILAP funds were available. I mean, it's just, she comes from Brewster?
Dennis.
And the Housing Authority here contracted with her office to manage the Housing Authority here, and it's been phenomenal. We have a kid that actually grew up here who has his family who lives in one of the units, and he's the handyman, I guess. He handles all the projects. It's been just phenomenal, and the response to the residents has been terrific. A lot of the residents have actually gone into their own units over years because they've qualified in the lotteries and whatnot. But it's just, we're running like a well-oiled machine. So I got to thank Nancy for that.
One of the first ones,
Thank
too,
you.
right?
We're one of the first ones, but we're also one of the most solvent of the housing authorities in the state. The state never really has to smack us upside the head as they do other housing authorities like New Bedford. So we're running pretty well. We don't really need an awful lot of oversight and a lot of interference from the state or the feds because we are running so well. We're smaller than some of these huge housing authorities, but we run really well in an isolated location.
Yeah, it is challenging, but we're happy to be here to help Nantucket and the people on Nantucket.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'll see you at 1:30.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, We have two attendees, Pauline Proch and Tracy McDonald, just so that you know.
Okay.
At some point, they may have questions.
Do either of you, Pauline or Tracy, have any questions up there?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you very much. And our next speaker is Mark Vanacore, President of the Nantucket Racquet Sports Association. For background, we've been sort of stockpiling money out there because it's a large project, recreational project. And it's taken quite, what, 3 or 4, 5 years, Tom, to get there? And we're almost there.
This is just the expansion. Missing middle.
Yeah.
I've memorized every square inch of that thing.
Is this on?
Yep.
You can. How's that? Okay. Hi, I'm Mark Vanacore from the NRSA. I'm the president, and just want to thank you for having us here today to talk about our organization, and in particular, how much the CPC has helped us in our growth to get where we are today, and then a bit about the future expansion that we're all very excited about. For those of you that don't know, the Nantucket Racquet Sports Association is a volunteer organization that manages our campus at 82 Hinsdale, which currently is 4 platform tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. And it's, if you haven't been over there, you should go over there. It's a real community spot. I was over there playing this morning. There's lots of activity. It's open to the public. There is a membership, but it's really a place where you'll find both summer residents and year-round residents playing together, and it's a real community that we all like. To go to the first slide, I put down a little bit of the history. I won't go through the whole thing, but we just celebrated 50 years when this was founded as a platform tennis association. We're a 501c7, so nonprofit. In 2009, for a long time, it was just a couple platform tennis courts out on Pulpus Road. And then in 2009, we moved to our current location. With the help of the land bank, we are on land bank land as a leasee. And that's important as we talk more about the expansion. So that then at that point, we built more platform tennis courts, up to 4, a warming hut, and the viewing deck, which is what you'll see if you pull into the parking lot. Then in 2019, which has probably contributed, really to the growth of our organization, with funding from the CPC, we built 4 pickleball courts that have lighting. And for those of you that don't know, pickleball is a hugely growing sport with over, by some estimates, 45 million people playing in the US. And if you go over to the courts, especially during this time of the year, they're very busy. But after those courts were built, and part of it was, during COVID, it was a sport that people could play. The membership really exploded. We went from something like 100 members to over 400 members. Today, we have 380 members. And the courts are, especially the pickleball courts, which the real demand this time of the year, are very busy with lots of, not only, the members, but guests can come, they can go on our website, reserve a court. We think it's a pretty reasonable place to be able to go. You can get a court for $60 for an hour and a half, or pay $15 to go to one of our 2 or 3 hour drop-ins. So it's interesting, we just did a total last year, in the fiscal year, we had 4,000 guests. Not unique guests, but 4,000 people paid $15. So it's a huge usage. And it's something that we're particularly focused on because we are land bank property and we are a public facility. The big thing happening now, and this is only due to CPC funds, we've been here, I guess, 3 different times. We've gotten 3 different grants and stockpiled this funding for the court expansion. And the court expansion, you can see on the board that I put down, is going to be 4 pickleball courts and 2 padel courts. And we're really excited about that. Excited for 2 reasons. One is the pickleball courts are helping us with the capacity. We have open drop-ins sometimes. We have, the ability for 16 people to play at a time, and we'll get 60 people to show up this time of the year. There's longer waits. We're working on that by adding more drop-ins, but once we have these courts, we really can open that up. We don't advertise at all. So this is all word of mouth. Some of the hotels recommend their guests come over. But once we get this new courts, we can really open it up more to the community because we'll have double the capacity. And padel is another sport that, again, is an outdoor sport that is really growing in the US. They're putting in courts in a lot of spots. Traditionally, it's a very expensive sport to play, but we are not going to charge, places around New York charge $200 for an hour of padel. But our goal is to have these courts, keep them at the same price, and have them open to the community. If you flip to the next page. So just a little bit on this combination of membership and guest and public use. Members, the real benefit is to being a member is that you pay an annual fee, and then you don't have to pay each time you reserve a court, and you can reserve 7 days in advance. Where a non-member, the term guest is not really correct because you don't have to come as a guest of a member. Anyone can play. You reserve 3 days ahead of time via the same app that the members use. The thing about our location is you can get reservations. I know Miacomet golf is very challenging once it gets past 8:02. For us, if you go on, you can get, non-members can get reservations. So it is open to the public, and that's, we provide free loaner paddles and balls. And like I mentioned, we had 4,000 guests in the 24-25 season. So that's kind of how we're set up now. With the money from the CPC that we've gotten, which is close to 1.5 million, we plan to expand both expand the membership. We think we can take up to 100 new members, and also massively expand the open play time for, which is mainly attended at this time of the year by non-members. So we're very excited about that. If you flip to the next page. I just put this down. It's a 5-person board. The organization is completely run by volunteers and committees that oversee both the pickleball during the summer and the platform tennis during the winter. We have a member, a bookkeeper, and then we have a website. It's kind of a work in progress. We want to upgrade it, but it's actrsa.org. And if anyone's interested in ever playing, if you go on there, there's instructions on how to register and use the app. And we're working on upgrading that. So now the important part. I talked about the CPC. The original funds were used for the current courts back in 2019. We've now been here 3 different times and gotten 1.495 million, That plan, we have the bids came in. We've worked very closely with the land bank. Eleanor and Rachel, we've had, and Tom Dixon on the construction committee. where we've met almost every Friday for, a long time to come up with these plans. We've gone out, gotten the lowest bid, and we're ready to go in the fall to build these courts. As I said on the chart, you can see it's the 4 pickleball courts, 2 padel courts, increased parking. Importantly, we've worked with ComDis to make sure everything will be ADA accessible. So that, adds some cost for us. And actually, there's some existing part of the facility that we have to upgrade to become ADA accessible also. So that's where we stand. The organization is, and the people, not just the members, but everyone, you get tons of email. People are very excited for this to happen. Literally every time we go to the court, people ask me when this is happening. And it's been a work in progress, but we're ready to go and excited. The plan is to do a lot of the construction in the fall. So the site work, the pickle courts go on post-tension concrete. Padel courts just can go on a slab, get all that done and built. And then in the spring, you have to wait till the weather warms up to paint the pickleball courts, but really be ready to go for next season. So that's our plan now. And one thing I wanted to mention, we've done a lot with the community, with Strong Winds. They come use our courts for free. They actually posted something on their social media to thank us the other day, which Eleanor, I have to send that to you, which was nice. So we give them some court time and they bring some of the older kids. We've done where some of us teach novice pickleball clinics, and we've gotten people coming over from the senior center. And right now, we're kind of capacity constraints, but one of the real exciting things for us and members of the board and the committees is as we expand and have more open play and more court time, that we can do more with the community. The schools, some youth programs, because pickleball is really, it's an amazing sport because anyone really can pick it up and pretty good at it. It's hard to master, but pretty easy to play. And it's a great sport for kids. So we're really looking forward to this expansion. The next 2 pages are, probably too much information, but it's a lot. I just wanted to put down what we have. Of the people that play in the winter is, it's the year-round residents. We have about 125 to 130 people that play platform tennis. We do all sorts of leagues. We do clinics. We do some tournaments where with something called Nantucket, where every year we go to Chatham or they come here. We do a lot of fun things in the winter. And that's mainly driven by members, year-round people that are here. We did do something last year where we opened up a winter membership because we wanted to get more of the younger year-round residents playing paddle, sort of the next generation. So we brought 30, we opened it up, we got 30 people that were interested. We brought them in as winter members, and then we decided to actually roll that into full memberships. So that's great. And these were, younger people that work, so they were there almost every night playing. So we're really trying to expand that. And so the paddle courts are, not where we're capacity constrained at this point. That's really the pickleball courts. If you go to the next page, that's the pickleball programs. We do open play sessions. What that means is anyone can come. You don't have to sign up ahead of time. There's a list you sign to get in. If you're not a member, you pay $15, but those are 2 to 3 hours of open play. We started this year where we have members that monitor those to help them run smoothly. but it's great. And that's probably where all of us that play now started going into those drop-ins. So those are really busy, and we're about to meet to add more of those because they're right now over capacity. I mentioned Strong Wings, what we've done. We did member guest tournaments. So we really, we had a pro that's actually the Great Harbor Pro that had some room, and he came over to teach some lessons. So we're really trying to have some robust programs over there. And what we're most excited about is this expansion allowing us to do a lot more with the community and really with people that come to the island for a week or two and don't know 4 other players to organize their own court, but can come into the open play, which is the most popular thing we do. The money that we've gotten in 3 different grants from the CPC is 1.49 million, so just under 1.5. After going through the procurement process and bids and the increase in costs and doing it on Nantucket, the lowest bid now, but the bid is approved, is at 1.7 million. So we have a slight gap. NRSA we have 2 sources of fund. We have a $350,000 credit line that we can use, but we also have roughly $400,000 in the bank now, which is collecting, member fees and non-members paying the guest fees. So we're ready to go ahead in the fall and excited about it. And, overall, without that CPC funding and also the generosity of the land bank in allowing us to use that land for like a very reasonable rent and a long-term lease, it's been an amazing place of growth. And we see it there. Our vision is that this really becomes a bigger and bigger part of the community, because when people come over there, they get hooked and they're there a lot. So, and I think that, we can really grow.
Well, thank you very much. I learned an awful lot there. I just got 3 quick questions.
Sure.
You do have a shortfall, but you do have some reserve. I think our question last year was, and Tom didn't know necessarily, but he didn't think they were coming back. Do you coming back to the CPC this fall, or do you not foresee coming back to us for a while?
We didn't have that planned at this point.
Okay, just keep in mind the timeline and stuff. It's not like
Okay.
we're not familiar with your organization at this point.
Yeah.
But we were just curious as to whether you would need more funding. And if you do, we're pretty deep into this project. Normally, the CPC likes to finish a project.
Okay.
So if you need funding to finish the project, you need to apply this fall.
Okay.
Okay, keep that in
Well, we've
mind.
discussed that, and yeah, I worked with Tom and some of the others on the last filing we did to come in here and ask for funds. So, yes.
What we don't want to do is see it have it stopped or not finish the whole project, because some, like the Methodist Church, we've been with them 20 years.
Yeah.
So we'd like to finish the projects that we start, especially when we're that big a nut in there.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind if you guys need to come back. Do you see future expansion beyond what you have planned right now?
In our minds, there's a phase 2, which, may include tennis courts. I think realistically, it's a ways off.
Okay.
I really think that, we're expanding, adding 6 courts, we're adding a new sport in padel. We know that given this, first, we know we're going to have to hire a dedicated project manager to help us through this construction. And second, we think that we're going to have to hire, once that's done, a more full-time person to help manage the facility.
Yeah.
I really think we're going to absorb this new expansion and see how it goes, and that will be a few years off, at least.
Okay, and now I'm pretty savvy about sports. What is padel? I know what paddle
So-
tennis is, I know what pickleball is, I know what tennis is. I played lacrosse. Anything
Yeah.
with a stick or a paddle, I'm fine. But padel, out there.
Padel is interesting, and internationally, it's called paddle. In the US, they call it padel, P-A-D-E-L, because we already have paddle, because we already have platform tennis. I would best describe it as a combination of tennis and racquetball. It's on a court that's enclosed, so it's surrounded by plexiglass. And the floor is sort of an indoor-outdoor carpet that's the court with a net in the middle. So think of racquetball, but racquetball you play against one wall.
So you play it off the walls?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah, so you play it like tennis. It has to hit the floor, but it can ricochet off the plexiglass, which makes it really exciting. It's very fast. It's
It would drive me
yeah.
nuts.
If you go on YouTube and watch some videos of the top people playing, it's an insane game. I've played it like 6 times, and it's addicting. It's fast moving, and it's got a lot of aspects of racquetball, but it's a great sport, and it's also the way the courts work. They're outdoor courts, but unlike a pickleball court, which when it's wet, you can't really play on it.
Right.
That surface, you can play like 8 months out of the year. You can't play when if it's icy or too cold in the 30s, but people do play that all year, almost all year round in temperate places.
Is it just one-on-one, or can you do 2-on-2?
It's doubles mostly.
Doubles. Oh my God, I'd be crazed.
Madam Chair, it's played with like kind of a thick paddle with a wrist strap, and it's played with a 50% pressurized tennis ball. So
was gonna say a
it
tennis
isn't
ball.
quite as fast as tennis because the ball's not as
Heavier.
pressurized, but it is a very quick sport, as Mark said.
Yeah.
And not as loud as pickleball, right?
Not even
No,
close.
no.
Yeah, this pickleball noise is pretty
And the tennis
intense.
loft, I told
Triggered Joe.
My playing board hat, I had to bring that up.
I told Tina at the tennis loft, now she has to stock Padel paddles because we all have to buy them, but it's a very fun sport.
Any other questions, anybody? Just keep in mind if you need to come
Okay.
back. Because the one area, we get a lot of affordable housing on that part. We get a lot of historic preservation applications. I think number-wise, historic preservation is the largest number. But we're required to give 10% to each one of these areas,
Okay.
which is, if we get 4 million, which is what it's been averaging lately, it's, 400, 400, 400, and then we go obviously above that. But we don't get an awful lot in the open space recreation applications.
Okay.
So if you guys need to ask for more, just remember that the money doesn't become available until July 1 of 2026, but you've got an extended period of where this has been going on, so.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. I'd just rather see this whole, after all the years we've been giving money and stockpiling money, I'd rather see this project just go to completion.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just I want to note that after almost nearly a decade, I no longer have any affiliation with the NRSA, so I'm free to, if something comes back, to vote, et cetera. But the process of this whole thing has been really exciting, and I think the club will get there, the NRSA will get there with phase 1 and then maybe phase 2 in the future. And I just wanted to thank Eleanor for all her work on the procurement side of this. It is an immense amount of work. I think the bid documents were 400 pages or something. And working with CHA, the architects, and it really was an interesting process. And it takes a while, but government processes are slow. It's just how it is. So thank you for Eleanor's work, the Land Bank's work, and the NRSA board, Mark and the NRSA boards continue to work on this project.
Well, a question for you. It's come up before with CPC funding on quasi-town property. Because you're on land bank property, do you have to do prevailing wage?
Yes.
Yes.
That's unfortunate, because the same thing happens with the housing authority. We also have to do prevailing wage, which is what adds 30, 40% to the cost of stuff because of prevailing wage. Yeah, the Nantucket factor. It's just unfortunate that anytime it's done with on town property or something like the housing authority, then you have to go prevailing wage.
And that's, Madam Chair, part of the reason why we didn't come back, because when we went out, we thought that what we had would be enough. And then between, some of the economics and the cost of materials, and plus pickleball is so popular that these companies are very busy, and so everything became more expensive.
More
and
competitive.
More competitive.
Which is what concerns me. If you only have 400 in reserves and you're about 400 and change short,
Yeah,
that perhaps you should come back to us this fall.
yeah. I think we should. That's a good idea, and we'll do that.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Is there, I forgot to ask, anybody in the audience who's here that wasn't involved with any of the presentations, do you have any questions? Okey dokey. Then we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
No question and answer, we've done that. Any closing remarks from anybody? I thought these were very, very good presentations. I'm glad to see everybody here, except John's away out of the country. So it's very nice to actually meet in person for a change and not in the ugliest building on Nantucket.
You don't want to call it a building.
We'll be back over there next month, guys, so don't get used to it. Okay, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn at 11:18?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, Tom made the motion, Neville seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And not a roll call vote